Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you're having a wonderful day. We are back again, as per usual on these Mondays, with a Fanatics Weekly Review where I go through the top 100 soccer items auctioned off this last weekend. As always, if you enjoyed these, do make sure to leave a like, helps me up the channel, all that good stuff. But with that said, let's go ahead and swing on over to the site. And here we are. This week starting off at 150, so pretty big weekly in terms of pricing to get into it. We start with a PSA 3 of this perforated Gerd Muller from 65 Sticker Verlog. A pretty good price on this one. I've actually looked up beforehand. The PSA 3s, this was actually relatively in line since not many have sold lately, but there were PSA 5s this last year that have sold for like 90 bucks sometimes, 120 bucks at times, so this seemingly getting a really good price for a PSA 3. Next to it, we got a Calcio Flash Maradona. I don't see these a whole lot. I mean, the Calcio Flashes you do, but for some reason I don't feel like I run across this one much. Pop one of 9.6 higher in this grade. We've got a 72 Eusebio here going for 156 with a good amount of watchers there. Really nice looking, as are most Eusebios from Portugal. Beyond that, Maradona Edis from 1984. This goes for 162 in a PSA 8. Next to it, we have this 1936 Leyes Herminio Masantonio that goes for 162. Apparently a pretty prolific goal scorer. I did a little bit of preliminary research. I'm trying to get more into vintage, but man, it's hard because not only is looking all these guys up and trying to make sense of it hard, you also really can't find too much stuff of them. So if you want to go at it from a collecting point of view, along with a sort of historical point of view, it's very difficult. So I'm trying slowly and steadily. We're getting there. Next to it, Ronaldinho PSA 10 from Monday Chromo goes for 168. It doesn't strike me as a crazy price. I mean, especially for a pop 1 of 2. I know a lot of people collect Ronaldinho, and a Monday Chromo PSA 10. Not going to be easy to get by any means. Kind of a cool one there. Above that, PSA 7 of this Mbappe goes for 168. This is kind of a high price compared to what we'll see a 9 went for later. This only has 10 watchers as well, which is kind of telling. I always like to look at those. Next we have a black Jadon Sancho Velocity, goes for 168 and a PSA 10, along with this Jimmy Dune PSA 9 that went for 174. Above that, we have a Pele here from 67 Calciatori and a PSA 5 that goes for 186, along with a 1963 Benfica team picture in a yellow name PSA 6 that goes for 186. Of course, you got Eusebio in here. I say that not knowing if that's true. I'm just going to assume it is. If not, do let me know. But next to it, we have a Huey Ferguson PSA 7 192 on that one from the 1920 Godfrey Phillips set. A pretty interesting and somewhat sad story as well after doing some research there. One of the best Scottish footballers for the day. PSA Pop 1 of 1, none higher. Next to that, or I guess above it, we have a Christian Pulisic out of 49 treble. PSA 9 goes for 192, Pop 1 of 10, 2 higher. Along with that, we have a Kavicha Kvaratskhelia that out of 35 PSA 10 2022 score goes for 192. Next to that, we have a dual auto here of Garnacho and Carvalho out of 99 that goes for 200. Moving on up, we have a Diego Maradona, again, one that you see a decent bit. Pop 1 of 5, none higher, so maybe not easy in that grade, goes for 204. Then we have this Watsy Ronaldinho in a PSA 8 that I decided to look up because you don't see the Watsy Ronaldinhos all that much. And in a PSA 8 grade, this is down a little bit from last year's sales. I say a little bit, it's actually quite a good bit. 492 early last year, 432 middle last year, and this one goes for 204, which seems like a drastically, big dip, but when you consider PSA 9s recently, I mean, there was one that went for 384, it sort of makes sense. And, you can rationalize that in terms of rationalizing things. I don't know why this Napoleon's in here, but 204 on him, that's the highest price we've seen for one of those in these auction blocks. Above that, Topps Inception Messi Perfect 10 in an SGC 10 that goes for 204. You also have this Pele 64 Calciatori that goes in a PSA 2 for 210. And finally, a Figo PSA 10 Mega Fichas that goes for 210. Yeah, just kind of looking here, I mean, this Figo going for 210. I know it's a pop 1 of 1, but, the Ronaldinho seems like a relative deal. At least, knowing what I know generally about the collecting space and who people are going after. Seems like whoever got that kind of got a steal. So, again, I didn't look at pops. Maybe that's incorrect, but it doesn't feel bad to me. Above that, we have a Falcao, or on the next page here, we're on page 3 of Falcao from 2018 Eminence, goes for 222. We have this Pele stamp from the 68 set that goes for 222 as well, along with a 61 Kellogg International Soccer Stars Bobby Charlton in a 9 for 228. Above that, some more Pele Calciatoris. This PSA 4 goes for 234. Next to that, we have a Gyökeres that goes for, 252 out of 150 in a PSA 10 grade, along with a Buffon out of 5 with the PSA 10 for the auto, 8 for the card. 252 on that doesn't strike me as a crazy price. I know the card grade is an 8, but the auto grade's a 10. So, combine those, maybe 9 in some people's mind. I don't know. I would imagine most people probably want if you could switch it, would you rather have the card grade as a 10 and the auto as an 8? I don't know. It's an interesting topic to go ahead and think about, but $250 on that. A gold Buffon doesn't seem bad to me. Above that, a couple Dolars here that I am not all too familiar with, but they go for the same price here, $252 each. A little bit more watchers on the middle one there for Domingo Tarasconi. Above that, we have a Paolo Rossi PSA 6 from 78 Flash. This goes for $264 and a pop 1 of 1, none higher. We'll see a really nice sale from the same set a lot later in the auction block. This one does $264 with 10 watchers. Next to it, a 94 Merlin Calcio Totti rookie PSA 8 that goes for $264. I always thought this is one of the standouts in terms of just 90s design. I always love, it sort of reminds me of the Baresi Calciatore rookie where you got the mountains in the background. It just looks so good. Got the full shot as well, and this is a card also, so it's got, a ton of stuff going for it. I say it's a card. I'm just going to assume it's a card. I've never had one of these in hands, but it sure looks like a card, so we're going to go with it. Nonetheless, pop 1 of 13.7 higher if we go ahead and look here. I did look this one up. I say that. There it is. Okay, so I also looked up this Musiala. Did I just scroll past it somewhere? I guess I did. Sorry about that. I don't know where that was. There was a Merlin Atomic Musiala that sold for $210 that I thought was just somewhat interesting and I wanted to give a peek at. Last PSA 9 had sold sort of during the boom. I say during the boom, December 2022 might have been the bottom, but this went best offer apparently for $700. When you look at PSA 10 sales, a decent dip it would seem, since this is almost 3.5, almost 4x from the PSA 9, which is a little high generally. Anywho, the Totti that we were looking at, this is the highest sale since the May sale in 2022. The other one's at $231, $252, $186, and this one goes for $264. Notably, not having a sale for nearly a year and a half, at least in this grade, so seemingly that would help it as well. So a pretty good sale there. Next, you got the stained glass Julian Alvarez in a PSA 10 for $264. Above that, Titulares Garrincha in a 4 goes for $276. A decent grade for Titulares and a decent sale as well. I don't think it's a stunning price, but I have seen 3s generally at about $150, so this is a decent premium for a 4. This Adis 85 Baggio in a PSA 6 goes for $288. If we go ahead and look there, again, oh man, I thought I looked this up. Okay. Looked it up on my own. In general, it seemed like around the price they've been at for a good while. Of course, back during the vintage booming days, it was a good bit higher, but in terms of recent comps, this was relatively in line. In addition, you got the 63 Nanina postcard Pele and a PSA 1.5 that goes for $288. Always sort of love the imagery there. Above that, Father's Day Kylian Mbappe out of $399 for $288, along with this Messi PSA 10. I swear we've seen one of these in basically every auction for months on end. Like, it does not stop. So, but the prices keep on keeping on. So $300 there. Still a cool sticker. I think it looks good, but I'm surprised that they hold as well as they do, I guess. Thomas Muller 2017 Immaculate Collection out of 50 goes for $300 here. Card notably graded a 7 with the auto at 10. Beyond that, we have a Gianni Rivera here from 1960, an Olympiadi that I've never seen before. This apparently is a rookie. Don't quote me on that, and probably don't quote Fanatics on that if I'm being honest. But in a 5 grade, goes for $300. I don't know what to make of it. I'm sure if you're in the weeds, you probably either really like it or really don't, one way or the other. It looks like a fun one, at least in terms of imagery. If you have any info, do let me know. Always willing to learn. Beyond that, Rui Costa rookie here, PSA 8 from 1992, goes for $324. This sort of has a calendar back on it as well. It is from Panini, but as you can see there, the calendar on the back. And in terms of this sale, I did pull that one up. This was a really good sale. The last sale was just a couple months ago for $162, which is kind of crazy. Before that, $198 a month before that. So just going to make sure these are different certs because you always, got to wonder a little bit. Yeah, they all look different, so that's good to see it. And in terms of the price bump, it's sort of interesting. But I did see that there was a huge sale. I believe it was for Figo in a PSA 8 that recently happened over the weekend, like a massive bump compared to what those have been going for lately. So maybe there's some more people digging into the Portuguese pre-modern. Next to that, Lewandowski PSA 10 here goes for $324 for an auto from 2020 Euro. And finally, to top this row, we have a bunch of goats here. So a Sindelar Bulgaria Sport from 32 goes for $324. I did look this one up. Again, I looked it up. I closed it because it was relatively in line. It was better than some of the PSA 8 sales we've seen lately, but we have seen sort of a kick up in some of the lower grades, so this sort of follows in line with some of these going a bit higher. Notably, pre-boom, this was, I believe, like $150, $160 card, so, not massively up from pre-boom, and he also doesn't have a ton of releases, so I'm sure that plays a factor. It is a pop 1 of 13, none graded higher. If you do look at the Babe Ruth pop in this, though, there's a lot more of the Babe Ruth, so presumably more will come out. Now, it's going to take time, and will more people come out that want these before then? You would assume yes. So in terms of where that matches, I don't know. All to say, I don't think this pop 1 of 13 will stay this way forever, as will none of the pops, but at least in this scenario, you sort of have another player in the set that you can judge from to sort of extrapolate where these might go, which is interesting because you don't have that in a lot of spaces in soccer. Next to that, I didn't talk about this Ronaldo, but I do want to. I thought that this was a really nice price if you're a Ronaldo buyer or just a collector of this set. The award winners from 2017 Chrome is a fun one. It's got a different look to it. The gold, if you have it in hand, I'm sure is a bit better. I've owned some reds in the past, and I thought they were pretty cool. This one in particular was a standout to me in terms of pricing just because, well, one, it's Ronaldo, but two, there was, I believe, an Iniesta and a Modric in this auction block. They didn't quite make the top 100, but they were right outside of it. So those were going for like 100 to 150. In my mind, I think Ronaldo is 5 to 10x, the sort of secondary stars. And so, in my mind, this was a $500 to $1,000, card relative to them. Now, I don't know what comps were in the past on this. I don't think it sells too often, if I'm being honest with you. But pop 1 of 11, 6 higher. I thought that was a good buy if you're into it. And then finally, we have this 34 Vecchi Miazza here with the panel going in a pop 1 of 1, just 1 higher for $348. So that gets us through the first half of the auction block. On to page 2. We start with a couple Kylian Mbappe's. Take your pick here. A decent amount of watchers for both of them, if I'm being honest. PSA 9, Kylian Mbappe foot, a pretty low sale there at $348. I didn't look it up. I keep thinking I did. But I did check it, and I do know these prices generally. Those have been $400 to $500 for the most part, and that was low. And now we're at $348, which is also low. So they just sort of keep getting lower. The BGS 9.5, this is a Gem Plus. It has a 10 for edges and a 9.5 on everything else. Or is it I think it's a 10 for centering. Yeah, 10 for centering, 9.5 everything else. So this was a good premium over the other 9.5s, but that's probably why. Next to it, you have a Harry Dennis rookie. Again, rookie, I don't know. Take your knowledge and apply it for yourself. But a 24 Anglo-American goes for $372 with the PSA 2 MK designation. Above that, Christian Pulisic Copper goes for $408. I also looked this one up just because I was curious, and this sold a good bit more than the last sale. I think it was almost double one that had sold last year. Obviously, he's having a pretty good year, a good couple last years, to be honest, so I think that's helping here. PSA 8 going for that price, pretty strong sale for him. 44 Leonidas here, Instantaneo, that goes for $432 and a PSA 3, sort of an in-action shot of him. And an early Leonidas, not a rookie, but early and generally hard to find early stuff for him. Then you have a 63 Eusebio yellow name for $432 and a 1.5 grade. Pretty nice looking in terms of a 1.5 grade, on the front. Nothing noticeably off. I mean, obviously the edges and corners got a little bit going on, but decently centered. Back's also fairly clean, so looked like a good 1.5 to me. I did look this one up. Last PSA 1 went for $300. PSA 1 before that, $492. If we go back even further, I guess back in 2023, this one went for $500, which isn't crazy, but twos at the time were going for a good penny, closer to the 1.5 range. So, yeah, I mean, down a good bit. If you look pre-boom, though, PSA 2 here was going for $130 back in July 2019. So still a good premium over those from back in the day, which is good to see. And seemingly in a good spot. Also seemingly a good buy, at least from my point of view. In terms of eye appeal, I thought it looked good for a 1.5. Above that, orange Lamine Yamal rookie, PSA 10 goes for $432, numbered out of 49. You also have another orange here of an all-time great, just as Lamine Yamal is, with this Morar Sprint Pele and a PSA 7 pop 1 of 1, 1 higher, goes for $444. And then another Dolar here from 1925 and a PSA 1.5. The player, again, not too familiar. I'm very poor with South America in terms of pre-war. Lambaste me in the comments if you so please. I wouldn't, fault you for it. So then we got a Christian Pulisic rookie out of 35, PSA 7 with a 10 auto. I thought this was a relative deal, at least compared to the copper. Now the copper is the field level, but to me, these autos usually do decent numbers compared to the field level. So I thought that was a deal if you're looking for one of those two. Next to that, we have a Labruna from 1942 that goes in a PSA Authentic Altered for $492. That's a pop 1 of 1 2 higher, by the way. We also then have the Souza, which I think was Gaetjens. I saw some Discord discussion. I've also sort of made pictures or looked at pictures also in the past of like all the players. Basically, the American team, they messed up the players, and so all the names are wrong for the most part. This one goes for 500, which is a good premium over the other players, and would also sort of side with what people were saying there in terms of this being Gaetjens, one of the stars for the American team in the 1950 World Cup. Of course, a star on the American team is a sub-star compared to most, but for us, it's relatively important. This is a pop 1 of 1 3 hired in an authentic altered. A lot of these are authentic altered, but if you go and look, they don't look bad. I mean, maybe I'm just not as informed, but generally speaking, a nice copy and one that's not going to be easy to find by any means. Above that, in a discount Sartori Maradona, the Prismatic from 84 in a PSA 9 goes for $516. I did check comps. There have been a good bit selling between 4 and 500, so this seemed like a nice sale. Every now and then, one on eBay slips through the cracks and goes really cheap, but generally, when these are on Fanatics, they do pretty good numbers. Next to it, you have a Velita back, 66 Calciatori, so a second-year Beckenbauer there goes for $516 and a PSA 7, pop 1 of 3, none higher. This Nobility Pulisic, I know it's a PSA 10, but man, people love this Nobility. To me, seems like a high price. I mean, when you're talking, you could get a rookie auto or a rookie out of 49 field level compared to a second-year Nobility out of 20. Personally, it'd be an easy choice for me, but apparently, I mean, even in terms of watchers, 40 watchers on that one, still a decent amount. I like the set. I mean, I like the names in the background. It's kind of cool, don't get me wrong, but I think people are going to do this, and by people, I mean Topps and Panini are going to do this. I'm pretty sure the recent Topps set has the same sort of thing going on. I like it. I just don't know. I mean, to me, they're paper cards. They don't really shine at all, so they just don't stand out. But obviously, that's just me. I know generally a lot of people like them, so I see why it does a good number, but it feels strong, just to me. Oh, okay. It was jersey number as well. I wanted to check because I thought maybe that might be the case, and it is jersey number. It's 10 out of 20, so that might also play a factor. I'm sure it does. Beyond that, 2018 Kylian Mbappe's Father's Day out of $399 and a 10 goes for $588. This Erling Haaland auto is a really funny one just because this Topps Borussia Dortmund set came out early 2020 when the pandemic was going on. I remember buying some and hearing that you could hit Haaland autos, which was sort of the chase in it. And I've basically never seen them. Like, they must have only put a very, very small amount in there because this might be the first one I think I've ever seen, to be honest with you. It goes for $588, which isn't a crazy price, but at least for me, just given the time and sort of buying the set myself, I find that to be pretty interesting. So, pop 1 of 1, then higher, which also sort of indicates what I'm saying there. Next to that, you have an SGC 3 Messi Este that goes for $600. Pretty cool one. I've bought some cheap Messi Estes before in low grades, and I ended up flipping it. I think generally people don't really pay too much of a premium for the low grades, and I mean, if you just want to get one, $600 isn't bad. I think it's fair, though, on auction. I mean, it's obviously pretty beaten up. If you look here at the bottom left, I mean, the corners are not thrash, but they're not great. The edge is much the same, so I think it's a somewhat fair price, but I think if you're just trying to get in, you're not going to find many low grades unstuck, and so being able to get one, not bad. Above that, 49 Raymond Kopa rookie SGC 2 here. Again, can't speak to the rookie factor on that, but you do have a team photo with an early Kopa. Goes for a good number, which would sort of indicate that as well, and a decent amount of watchers at 24. This Alval 94 R9 goes for $630. In an authentic grade, which this same one has sold now 3 times in the last 6 months. All of them being like 3 months apart, so I would assume it's, just people buying it and then wanting to move on for whatever reason. First one initially went for $690, this one went for $990, and now this one goes for $630. I think if you're, looking for a rare R9 early release, I think that's not a bad price. I mean, compared to earlier stuff, the initial one that came out that started this whole hunt back in the day was a 2022 sale for $3,500, an authentic that, in my opinion, looks worse. And so to be able to get this for a seventh of the price and it looks a lot better, I think that's a decent deal. There have been some high grades that come out. A 5 here sold for $8,400 and another 5 for $12,000. So yeah, I mean, you're getting a decent discount. A 1 back in the day sold for $1,200. But again, this one, I mean, I almost like this authentic a bit better in terms of color and just general borders and all that good stuff. So Fun one there if you're looking towards it. Next we have a 2023 Jude Auto out of 25 for $660. And then up here, I have no clue on this Alan Simonson. No clue at all. It says rookie PSA 4, presumably must be, super rare. Pop 1 of 1, just 2 higher, goes for $750. Again, forgive me, I am not the best at this, but I try. Only 14 watchers as well, which is a pretty impressive result for a 70s with 14 watchers. Beyond that, Kylian Mbappe, Kaboom. I know Kabooms. I know what that is, so I can, I guess, talk about that. And we'll also have some comps to look at. This one goes for $750, which is a huge price compared to some recently. The last two in December went for $522, $380, and then $512. So super strong prices there. I'm not really sure why in terms of, we saw the earlier sales. The rookie stickers seemingly are doing pretty poor. This one coming back a little bit, but at the same time, there were sales last year for $600-700 at times, and I think this is a good general idea of what happens to new releases. Even a Kaboom Mbappe that seemingly would be pretty desirable, and Kaboom still has a great name or a great standing in the hobby. Initially comes out $2,200, $2,300, $1,700, drops down to $1,000 in 2022, and then as we get into 2023, it's still lingering around $1,000. Slowly drops into the $600s, $700s. In 2024, still $600, $500, and then some $300 sales. So, it's just been sort of a slow and steady dip on these. And where does it turn? I don't know. Is this the beginning of a turn? You could argue that, but we sort of see some outlier sales throughout this, so it's hard to, gauge that based off one sale. All that to say, this has been nearly 3 years, I would say, in terms of this card selling, and it hasn't really reversed course at all. And it is a fairly notable card, at least in terms of modern. Now, of course, now you have other people going after other years of Kabooms, and notably even like golds, and I think they're black 1 of 1s now. They're not green like they were in other sports, but now you have parallel Kabooms that you could go after. So, they do sort of divert your attention in different ways, and it's hard to really have the same staying power behind every year of a card. So, just throwing it out there. Beyond that, we got the future star here of Lamine Yamal. I guess it's just future, not future star, huh? Out of 25, PSA 10 goes for $750 there with 36 watchers, and that takes us to page 1. On page 1, we start with the Sergio Ramos rookie PSA 9. Did I look it up? I don't know if I did, but I did not, but I do remember looking. This was a little lower. There were some sales last year that were $900 to $1,500 at times, so this is a bit lower than those. Pretty hard to find, though. Pop 1 of 13, 1 higher on that one, so if you're looking for it, that seems like a relative deal. This Kylian Mbappe rookie Ruby Topps Museum goes for $870, which also seemed like a relative deal compared to some recent sales. Pop 1 of 2, none higher. You also have this Messi PSA 8 from 2008 that went for $900. We saw the Ronaldo do a pretty good price last week at $500, I believe it was, plus or minus a little. This Messi does a nice premium over him at $900 there for the Pop 1 of 4, none higher. Speaking of Ronaldo, we got a couple ones here. My God, we have this Erling Haaland Topps Match Attacks. Goodness. Anyways, sorry, that sort of caught my eye. Cristiano Ronaldo auto from 2018. We also have this purple Cup Captains PSA 10. That's a Pop 1 of 5. Again, I sort of checked that out on my own. There have been 2 other sales. I think one was in like 2023 or 2024, and the other one was in 2021, maybe. But sort of during the booming days, and this has held strong. Both of the last comps were around 1,000. This one is 2. I think the PSA 10 Prism is sort of getting the love that it deserves since it's so hard to get. Then this 2019 Match Attacks Erling Haaland PSA 10 goes for $1,020. Pop 1 of 10, so presumably hard to grade. I also think this might have been the first Erling Haaland sort of notable release. I don't know. For some reason, and if you know, feel free to let me know. I know a lot of people on Twitter sort of clamor for this card. I barely go on hobby Twitter, but whenever I do, I see a lot of the Haaland folk on there clamoring for this card. If you know the exact reason, let me know. But as you can tell by the price, seemingly still clamoring, as a $1,000 sale for a Match Attacks card is basically never happening in these auctions. So impressive one way or the other here, and yeah, $1,020 there, not bad. Above that, in ONB, this is the Colacao of Garrincha from 1957 at PSA 1, Pop 1 of 4, 1 higher. Pretty rare one that I did manage to pick up last year, so I'm pretty proud of that. This one goes for $1,050. Always love the look of it. You got this nice blue background with a red netting. Noticeably off-center, but at the same time, I think the colors are amazing on this one as well, and I'm pretty sure the back's also pretty nice too. So, I think it deserves a 1. I think that's fair, assuming that it was stuck, which, I would guess it was. I mean, you start to look at the bag, you can probably make that out. But there were no comps for this one. This one goes for 1,050. The other ONB from 57 goes for, I think, like 500, like anywhere from 400 to 700, it feels like lately. So this one being noticeably rarer, I think probably deserves a premium and does get a pretty good premium over it. Next to it, you have the 2022 Topps Chrome Lionel Messi out of 50 auto that goes for nearly 1,100 in the CGC Authentic that they do for Fanatics. Along with that, you have a 42 Glorieta here of Andrade. SGC 1.5 goes for 1,300. A notable set in terms of early World Cup sets with mass releases. I say mass release, that's wrong, but in terms of having the totality of all the players, all the teams, all that good stuff. One of the first to do that, if not the first, at least from what I've read in the Vintage Discord, and that's where I get a lot of my info on this type of stuff. Again, if you like vintage, there's a Vintage Discord link down below. I also have a link to my USMNT Discord, which is basically useless. I am debating whether or not I should start a Discord for this channel just at large. I think USMNT was far too niche, and I should have just made it a total sort of thing. But back in the day, Andre and Soccer Study had a much bigger and more robust sort of total soccer Discord. And so I don't know if it's worth pursuing. If you guys think it is, if you think that I should start a Discord for sort of general and probably more focused on modern/pre-modern collecting, let me know. Although I say that, people in modern probably hate me and wouldn't even want to go. So I don't know. I have a lot of people that are upset with me, but seemingly there's, probably people out there that would enjoy it. So again, voice your opinions down below. About that, in 1924, Puck Van Heel. This one goes in a PSA 2 for $14.70. There were a couple sales recently. I think there was a 1MK and maybe a PSA 1 or an authentic grade that were a little bit lower. So this one gets a bit of a boost because of the grading. But this is a very hard to find release and also a notable, I believe, Dutch player from the $1,500 range. We did, or at least I did, sort of some research last time, but I did not do my due diligence this time, so it is what it is. Next to it, we have a 1/1 Griezmann and a Toni Kroos, both going for nearly the same price. Notably, the Griezmann is a PSA 10, the Kroos is a 9, so you think the Kroos probably does a decent bit more if it was a 10. Sort of interesting to see, because honestly, I don't see a lot of Toni Kroos stuff in these auctions at all, and I've always thought he's sort of one of the more, less talked about players. Modric has really garnered a lot of the attention as he sort of held on at Madrid for a little longer, but Kroos is a name I barely ever hear mentioned in the hobby, and I'm glad to see that he gets a decent price. We see a decent amount of Griezmann 1/1s, but barely ever any Krooses, so cool to see that. Above that, a couple golds here. The Kylian Mbappe 10-10 goes for nearly 2,000. It seemed like a light sale to me, considering it's a gem and a gem on both the card and the auto. Some 9-10s went for, anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 at times, so you didn't get a huge premium there for the 10-10. This PSA 10 Kane also didn't get a huge premium for the 10, but still does a decent price. Pop 1 of 3 goes for 2,000. The last sales here that we can see were 1,000 for a PSA 9, 1,200 for a PSA 9 as well in 2022. And then a PSA 9, I guess, back in 2021 did 3,600, which is, definitely quite the price. But in terms of recent comps, as you can see, decent sale, gets about 2x the recent comps. Pre-boom, this was sitting at a $70 to $300 card in terms of July 2020, which is kind of impressive. Especially this sale. If you were able to snag that, $138 for a Prism Gold Harry Kane during the Prism boom as well. That's quite the buy if you were savvy enough to scoop that up. Next to it, we have an Eddie Hamill from the same set as a Puck Van Heel earlier. This in a PSA 1 gets 2,000 again. I think this is one where we've seen a couple copies go prior, but in lower grades, or at least ones with designations of MK or whatever it may be, qualifiers, as you would say. This goes for 2,070 and a pop 1/1, none higher. Again, really cool to see that go. Fairly niche stuff, but still getting decent watchers. I do think some of the earlier sales might have helped that as well, but you got 24 on this one, 22 on that one. And then above that, a pretty cool row here. You got the treble Ronaldo that goes for 2,200. Not going to talk about it because I don't think people want me to. Beyond that, we got a 59 Heinerle Leviashin and a PSA 6 that goes for 2,500. This is pop 1 of 6, 3 higher. Really, really cool Leviashin. Sort of the notable early release for him. You do get this white border on the left a good amount of time, so it's hard to sort of of avoid that. It does seem like a decent amount of white border on the left, but what are you going to do? Also, the back's got some staining, so I guess in terms of a 6, I mean, it doesn't look great to me. But I guess the edges, the corners look good. So depends how you want to view that. If you think it's overgraded for a 6, let me know. If you think it seems right, let me know. But the price sure says it's decent at the very least. So in terms of past pricing on this, we do have some PSA 4s and 5s pulled up because those are the only things I've really sold the last couple years. The 4s are going for around 500, sometimes as low as 384. I think I remember wanting this and kind of kicking myself for not getting it, and still do. Last 5 went for $1,500 in 2022. Again, you got the white border here, some more beaten corners, but presumably not the staining on the back. And then finally, you do have a PSA 6 back here for, what is that, $8,200. I wonder if that's the same 6 or not. No, this was a really recent cert. So, yeah, sort of the same looking border on that one as you do here. This one went for, obviously, a huge price of $8,200, which at the time, when none of this stuff was really coming out, didn't seem, all that crazy, although in hindsight, obviously seems pretty crazy. When you look at pre-boom pricing, though, a 5 back in 2019 was going for $62. So despite this huge sale that might seem like this 6 is a really bad sale, I think when you compare it to pre-boom, this is really good for vintage. A card that presumably in a 6 pre-boom might have been $100-$150, and now it's $2,500. It's a pretty good deal. A pretty good price, I guess we'll put it that way. In terms of Yashin, this is sort of the key notable item early for him in terms of like rookie material. I don't think there's been anything found before like 58 for him. Obviously, this isn't 58 anymore, but it's still sort of like the big notable card for him. The in-action stuff doesn't really do it quite the same, but there's always been speculation that we'll find something else from him back in Russia prior to 58, but that's yet to be the case. So still on the lookout, still haven't seen it, and Pop 106.3 Higher gets a really good price. Next to this EDI and a 2.5 Pele goes for a little bit. I think that's the same price at $2,500. Pretty rough looking copy here. It is a 2.5, so don't get me wrong. That's kind of going to be the case. Back's clean. Front, not so clean. The color isn't great, but what are you going to do? It's a 2.5. In terms of the price, some of these have sold. A 4 recently did $3,800, and, at least to me, that seems like a deal relatively. A 2 with the eye appeal sticker designation recently did $2,500 as well. A little bit of staining. I don't know if this is chocolate release, so, typically I would assume that, but that could just totally be wrong. I know that's a big thing back in Spain in the day, but 60s Italy, I don't think so. Anywho, beyond that, we had a PSA 3 back in 2024 that did $2,300. And noticeably, all of these have a lot better colors, man. So I think that this was a really good sale. This 1.5 back in January of 2024 did $640. And now a 2.5 is doing $2,500 with a lot worse colors. That's seemingly doing pretty good. Honestly, I kind of understand it. Me personally, I don't own one of these. Would love to. But I do think it's one of the better looking Peles from the era. I think it's just such a good photo. I love the colors. I love the chain as well. It's just, it's got everything going for it. Fairly rare also, not easy to get in high grade. As you can see, Pop 1 of 1 at 9 higher for a 2.5. And then we get a little bit higher here. And yeah, quite the row, quite the interesting amalgamation of a few different cards here. So to start, we have a KDB out of 5 gold power that goes for $4,300 and a PSA 10. Didn't look this up, but just sort of going off what we've seen lately, we saw a Mo Salah that was also gold power. I think it was a 9.5 grade, but that went for around the same price. And to me, that was sort of surprising because I know there's a lot more diehard Mo Salah collectors out there than KDB. But there's 83 watchers on this. It is PSA 10 gold power 2018 Prism. I'm sure that draws some eyeballs as well. And Pop 1 of 2 gets what seems to me like a pretty mighty fine number for a Belgium KDB release. Next to that, you have a Kylian Mbappe 1 of 1 here. This goes for $4,400. I did look at some comps, but I think I closed them. Yeah, I did. Anyways, this 1 of 1 compared to the 2021 1 of 1 seemed like a decent price because it got around the same price, but it was a grade lower. And what surprised me is that the prize footballers insert from Finest seemingly always do higher numbers than the base card, which is, at least to me, sort of shocking, but maybe I'm missing something there. I like the prize footballer stuff as well, but typically inserts aren't going to get a premium over the base. Nonetheless, good prices on both of those, despite what may have been said. And then a really good price here, this Franco Baresi from 78, the Flash Calcio, or the Calcio Flash, goes for nearly $5,000 in a PSA 8 pop, 1 of 1, none higher. When we go back and look at comps, I mean, I knew this was going to do a big number, but man, a BVG 6.5 did 580 a couple years ago. A couple years ago as well, a PSA 4 did 370. So to be fair, we haven't seen a copy of this show up in nearly a year and a half. And then when it does, it's the best copy of the bunch. And man, did it get the price that sort of exemplifies that. I don't know if it seems, I don't know if it's the way it's sitting in the slab, but it seems a little crooked in terms of centering, but maybe that's just the way it's sitting. It's hard to tell. Nonetheless, $4,800, huge price and very, very impressive for a Defender from Vintage being this high. Obviously a rare sticker here, so you can sort of make sense of it. Super high grade, super rare release, so it's got a lot of things going for it, don't get me wrong, but how often in these auction blocks do we see a vintage Defender going for nearly $5K? Don't come by it all that often, so really impressive there. And beyond that, into the top three, you got a Pele Alifa, a Kylian Mbappe Prism, and a Messi Ronaldo duel. I mean, this is just quintessential soccer, I guess. We have a 58 Alifa in a PSA 1. I did check that one out, since that was going to be pretty easy to comp, and this sort of tells a story of where Alifas have been. They're coming back up a little bit, slowly but surely. In terms of last year, there was a sale at the low of $4,000. Now, of course, different copies are going to look different. I don't think this was a particularly good-looking one. The front right, top right is beat. It's got a couple creases. I mean, it's a pretty beat one, I would say. The back, to be fair, looks okay, kind of off-center, but what are you going to do? So I thought that was a pretty good sale. In terms of these, you can see that there were a ton of sales within this sort of stretch last year from October to April, and I think that's sort of why these continued to drop and why they have done a lot better since. Because as you can see here, I mean, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There was 8 sales in about 6 to 7 months' time, and now we've had, 3 sales since. So yeah, I mean, that sort of speaks for itself. It's a Pop 34. There has been a lot graded in terms of PSA 1s, as you can see here. 2023, I mean, there was barely any graded from 2022 over here at 13 into 2023, and towards the end of 2023, there was only 3 or 4 graded. And then from September 2023, it went from 16 to now currently being at 34. So obviously that's not going to help either. It's a total pop of 200. And I mean, for vintage soccer, that seems like a lot, but for one of the most notable soccer items out there, or at least, it seems that way by the greater populace. A lot of people talk about this because it gets decent prices. It trades somewhat frequently, so it's in the minds of collectors and, even other people that aren't in soccer. I mean, it's not crazy to have a PSA pop total of 200. I think that's pretty fair. Despite that, seemingly doing okay. The price last year at a low of $4,000, $6,000 at this point. It came down a little bit from the sale in December, but up a little bit from the sale that last happened. And I would assume that the last one looked a bit better as well, if we're being honest. I say that. I mean, I think the color's better. It's got an obvious sort of crease across the middle, but I think I would take that compared to the copy we just saw. The back also looks a bit better as well, I would say. So, yeah, I think that this got a better price for a worse copy, which to me is impressive. Along with that, you got this pink laser Kylian Mbappe in a 9.5 grade. I did look that one up. This is actually the highest sale for this card ever in a 9.5 grade, which I found to be surprising because everywhere else you look, like silver Mbappe prisms from this year are like almost at all-time lows. His his Panini rookie sticker, nearly at all-time lows in terms of once the hobby became a real thing in terms of soccer. So to see this an all-time high was really impressive. 9,000 here. I think some sales like during 2021 to 2023 sometimes were like 4,000 to 5,000. So this one's up massively. And then finally, the Topps Inception dual Messi Ronaldo. Couldn't find any comps on this, so, what are you going to do? I don't have a whole lot to say. It looks like sticker autos. I guess I'll zoom in a little further to try to inspect. Yes, sticker autos. Game worn, maybe. Let's see, player worn. So you got the sticker auto player worn combo. I mean, to me, that's just a rough look, but I know that there's people out there willing to go after anything Messi Ronaldo, so more power to you. I think that I'd probably, who cares what I have to say on it? Player worn sticker autos aren't my thing, but, I understand that it has a place nonetheless. So let's take a look at next week, see what's out there. We start with the Soul the Game Ronaldo, which already is at a pretty good price. It is a BGS 9, which I guess is a relatively good grade, but we've seen raws for the Ruby and even the Gold at times do around this price. Along with that, an Alifa and a 5. I say Alifa, that's an Aquarella. 77 PSA 4 disc Maradona. We haven't seen a good grade of those going quite a bit, and seemingly the color looks pretty good. Now, I would check the cert on this and make sure it's still verified. I would guess it is because it's pretty recently graded. Typically, you want to see some sort of like notches along the side where it was punched out. I'm not seeing any notches, which isn't a great thing because apparently there were fakes that got graded at some point. But given how recent that was graded, I would guess that isn't the case. So that's just kind of an odd one, just something to throw out there. We also have a blue and red back Pele and a PSA 9. It's at 1500. Another PSA 5 Aquarella Pele, a PSA 9 record Pele. So if you're going after some big Peles, this could be a week for you. Beyond that, Eminence Messi out of 5. I wonder if that's the one that we saw sell recently. I don't know. A gold out of 50 Holland. That's pretty big time. Beyond that, I'm sure some good odd and ends here. Fun Greeling there. Baggio in a 7. A gold Messi. And yeah, tons of good stuff as well. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to it. I know I am. If you enjoyed this weekly, again, as always, make sure to leave a like. Anything you want to tell me or others, anything you might have snagged, thoughts sold high or low, love to hear about it in a comment down below. If you want to see more videos like this, as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.